Synecdoche, New York, 2008 film written and directed by Charlie Kaufman. And if you don't know Charlie Kaufman, he's an extremely unique and interesting screenwriter. In his works, he seems to always experiment and challenge and stretch the boundaries of what can be done in a movie in terms of screenplay, of what is possible in terms of how the story is told. I think his most famous work is Adaptation with Nicolas Cage, the movie about Charlie Kaufman trying to write the script for the movie adaptation. And as that movie progresses, it gets crazier and crazier because we slowly catch up with Charlie writing the scenes that we have already seen in the movie. And eventually the layers just crash into one another, and it's no longer clear what is fact and what is fiction, and what is life and what is screenplay. And that sounds like a recipe for disaster, but it's done in such an intelligent way, it just works. And I consider Adaptation to be an excellent movie. Synecdoche in New York is kind of reminiscent of Adaptation. It tells the story of Caden, played by the amazing Philip Seymour Hoffman. Caden is a theater director, somewhat successful at what he does, but importantly, he himself doesn't really consider himself to be successful. He feels that he hasn't lived up to his potential, hasn't really done anything truly meaningful, something that would succeed him. He's also getting older, has this underlying fear of disease and death, and on top of all of that, he feels unfulfilled in his marriage, his relationship with his wife and daughter, and he's disconnected from the family and truly lonely. And as his marriage falls apart, he decides to rent out this huge warehouse in New York and create a play inside, a play about his life, where he constructs more and more sets to represent each of the places and scenes that happened and still happen to him. And eventually, this make believe New York grows so much that it catches up to reality. It becomes almost a second whole thing in itself. Caden eventually casts someone to play himself, and then within the play, that someone acts out a scene where he hires someone to play Caden. And again, the layers just pile up on one another until it all goes completely mad. Now, this should rightfully sound similar to Adaptation. However, there are two key differences, and I think they are tied to one another. First, Adaptation was tighter, more focused, and it was also more hopeful and positive in its outlook on life. The tone was different. So, Synecdoche is more meandering, but it weirdly fits the tone of the story because it is a story primarily about fear, I think, fear and depression, fear of death, of unfulfillment, of getting older, of being mediocre, of loneliness, and of being misunderstood, and the depression that comes with all those fears slowly coming true, coming to life. And the film shows us how this downward spiral that Caden gets on causes him to slowly fuck up every relationship that he has, and he slowly loses his grip on reality and his own life. The most interesting thing for me about the film is how the story was told. As I said, those layers coming onto each other, onto one another, is one thing, but another is how Kaufman likes to do things that shouldn't be allowed, almost shouldn't make sense or shouldn't work in a film. So, for example, there are scenes where Caden is watching a cartoon on TV where the main character is himself. And it's never really explained or commented on. It's just a thing that happens. Or when his wife leaves with his daughter, the daughter, 4 years old at the time, forgets her diary at the old house, and Caden begins to read through the diary, and he continues to read it through the years, and somehow there are still new entries popping up into the diary written by the then adult daughter. And it's almost like Kaufman deliberately shows you those things and says, look, this can't be done. It doesn't make sense. It's against all the rules of storytelling, right? But hey, you're watching a movie, and this is a movie about making a play. So who knows and who cares what is possible and what's not, what is real and what's not? Let's just pretend not to care. So it's not exactly a fun film to watch per se, and I wouldn't call it a masterpiece either. I still think Adaptation was better at this experimenting with the story. But in terms of, again, storytelling, it is an original beast. It manages to be its own thing that stands on its own legs, and is not completely derivative of Adaptation. I think it will be most interesting to people who enjoy not just what is being told, but how it is being told.